afternoon, class. So today we're going to go over a little bit of what we went over last class about the Puritans. So last time we discussed who the Puritans were through the informational text. So let's answer this question. Using information from the Puritan informational text we have read, describe the reasons Puritans severely punished lawbreakers and what the punishments were like. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes and then we're going to share out our responses. Go ahead. We have about 1 more minute. I see several of you are almost done. Some of you are done. More seconds. Definitely see a few pencils down. Still a couple people writing. All right, perfect. So, who wants to start off? Ernesto.
Alright, so basically since the Puritan society was like new, they had to make laws to where their society would stay together. And basically if one went against it, they felt highly offended because it was going against like God basically. So that's why they set these strict laws and punishments.
Okay, so why was it so related to God? Like how is that kind of unique and different?
Their like society was based on religion. Well,
On religion.
Like Bible
They want to
period.
be perfect. They
Yes.
want to be perfect.
Right, they wanted to be perfect. Remember we talked about that's why they left England and started the New England colony? Okay, what else do we remember about the punishments? What were they based off of?
They believed in public humiliations and
Yes, public humiliation was big.
admitting your crime and reciting Bible verses.
Yes, so part of the punishments were reciting Bible verses and you had to admit the crime in front of the whole town. Moisha?
Wasn't it, they had to be branded?
Yeah, so depending on the punishment, like if you were a thief, they could brand you with a T and everyone would know that you were a thief. So it was just like based off of your sin and your crime. Okay, so let's move on from there. I know you hold your thoughts, too good. Okay, so today what we're going to be working on is comparing and contrasting similar themes or topics in 2 or more texts from American literature written in the same period. So that's why for homework I had to read the excerpt of the Scarlet Letter at the very beginning when our protagonist Hester is being punished in front of the whole town. We also read an excerpt from Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, which was a real sermon given in the 1740s. So we're going to look at how they're related. Okay, so go ahead and jot these vocabulary words down in your notes. So we already went over the Puritanic Code of Law, but I just want to re-emphasize it. They adhered to strict divine laws that were severely punished. Now who can tell me what I mean by divine?
God, like specific.
Yes, God. So Ernesto said earlier that the laws had to do with religion and law. So the laws were tied to their religion. It was a theocracy. And then the second word is malefactress, which means a woman who violates the law or does evil. So this one was used in the chapter 2 section when they referred to Hester as a malefactress. Who can tell me what sin / crime she committed? Yes, Nicole.
Adultery.
Adultery. And then the last one we have is sumptuary laws. So those are laws made for the purpose of restraining luxury or extravagance. So basically, remember we talked about how the Puritans were very simple people. They believed in being humble and not being like high fashion. So it was a part of the sumptuary laws. Can anyone tell me why Esther's A, when she decorated it, why that was a problem for them? Mr. Lashbrook.
As if she didn't care of that she committed the sin, but she was so proud of it.
Right.
Who decorates something that means evil in
Right.
a certain way?
It was meant to be like a punishment and evil, but she was kind of like wearing it proudly, like
Yeah.
decorating her letter A. Okay, I see most of you are done copying down the words, so let's move on. So first what we're going to do is go over your homework responses from chapter 2 of the Scarlet Letter. So if you can turn to your responses, what I want you to do is turn and talk with your partner. So either your elbow buddy or the person across from you, and you're going to go over your 3 responses to the questions. And then afterwards we're going to share out. I want someone from each group to tell me what their partner wrote about. Okay, so don't tell me what you wrote about. I want to hear what your partner talked about. Okay, so here's 2 minutes. Let's go. Right, that's that.
But it's worse because it's like And
Yeah, what were you going to say?
they wanted her to be handled, to be branded, and they wanted her to feel
Alright, so do we sound like complicated? Very much.
So like farmers.
Makes sense.
Okay. What about you guys?
What do you think about the punishment against 2 females? Because what she hides.
That's okay. All right. So I see a lot of good conversation taking place. A couple more seconds. Make sure you go over as many of those 3 responses as possible. It's not just her fault.
If like as a class people want to change from this type of stuff. Yeah, they're going to change like seeing people. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at question number 1. What did the women believe would be a more suitable punishment for Hester Prynne? So what was their opinion of the sentence pronounced by the magistrates and ministers? Okay, I saw some really good conversation in this table in the back. Y'all are too quiet. Miss Shanika.
The woman believed that Hester should have been branded with the letter A. One woman even said that she should have been hung. The magistrate and the minister felt like it was merciful and the punishment was too light.
It was too light. Okay, does anybody want to add on to that? No. You're good? Ernesto?
Alright, so basically, the women, they felt that she got off like way too easy, and because since it's like on the chest, she could hide it, and you know it's on the forehead, she can't hide it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what
So they either wanted to put it on the, I'm sorry, huh?
Oh, I'm done.
No, no, sorry, right back.
To add on, pretty much all this punishment, they want her like to come like to look to face is because they want them to feel guilt. They
Right.
want her to feel the pain of what happened.
Right, they wanted her to feel that guilt. That's why they thought that mercy, and they were way too lenient. Okay, now let's look at number 2, because that's kind of related. What can you infer about how the townspeople felt about sin and punishment in their society? So, Joanna, what did your partner tell you?
That they needed to be held accountable for their crimes and being severely punished.
Right, how do you think this related to the religion part? Yes?
It's like, if they committed the crime, they have to suffer the punishment, just as if in God's way, if you sin, you still have, like, you get sent to hell for punishment.
Excellent. Now, remember, that's tied into the text we read afterwards, so let's start building those connections. Were you going to say anything else?
Oh, and that's why they did it like publicly, so other people not commit the same sins.
Exactly. So it was kind of like meant to serve as an example, because if like Nicole did something and we had to punish her in front of everyone, not only was she never going to do it again, but then Quisha's sitting there going, I'm not making that mistake either. All right, and then the last one. How does Hester Prynne feel about the Puritanic Code, okay? Now give me some of the evidence in the passage. All right, think about this one. Let me know what your partner and you discussed. Anybody? I know, this was a tough question. If you need to talk again with your partners, go ahead and do that.
She feel as though
Yes?
it's not right, because if you're saying you're godly or you believe in the Bible, you shouldn't hurt other people. Like, and it's not everybody's problem, it's just one person's problem. Between the adulterers. like-
Between the adulterers. Now, what does that have to do with what we find out later with the father?
He was actually one of the high priests in the
Right. So some of us kind of know what happened in the book, you know, that Mr. Reverend Dinsdale was in fact the father. So it's a sense of irony. What else do we have to say about this? About how she felt about the Puritanic Code? Yes?
I guess she didn't care because she had looked them right in the eyes and didn't feel the shame at all.
Yes? Okay, what about the baby? Also tell me about the baby?
Not the baby, but the letter A,
Yeah.
which she decorated as she didn't care the fact that she committed the sin, but instead of like suffering for her punishment, she was kind of like enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say enjoy, but I think
She had pride.
Yeah, she accepted.
she
Yeah.
accepted her punishment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
And basically, with the child, she did not hide it, pretty much, showing that she did not care of like her crime.
Are you talking about the prison scene?
Yeah.
So what, can you tell us what happened again?
So like basically, she did not use the baby to like hide her
Cover
letter.
the letter.
Yeah.
So she was born.
Yeah, and she still showed it, even though the baby was a sign of her crime anyway.
Okay, so wait, let's talk about that for a second. So the letter A was her actual like punishment.
Mhm.
But what does Pearl also represent?
The
Crime of sin.
The sin. Like she is proof that she cheated on her husband because Pearl was produced. So it's kind of like, well, why would she cover it up? Like you're still walking around with this child who's clearly proof of what you did wrong. All right, cool. So let's transition now to the sermon. So this is the one given by Jonathan Edwards. All right, so. Okay, so this time I want you guys to talk as a group through your table. And I want to hear one response per question. So can you guys do question number 1? You guys can do 2. You guys can do number 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. 2 minutes.
You have to stop him from singing, getting over it.
But like, they don't.
pretty much she just
But that's like,
that's like chunk of it saying that's right.
and he's threatening, but he's threatening with God. And then,
Yeah.
Praying the people.
yeah, threatening the people, but you say God. That's like,
Perfect. All right, and you guys are doing number 1. Yes. Okay, so I heard a lot of good conversation. Let's start with, you guys have number 1, right? Okay, so according to Edwards, why are his listeners deserving of hell? What is the reason he provides for why they have not been dropped into hell already?
Because they was really holy, like,
Speak up. They weren't really holy,
yes.
but I thought they lived with like Christian laws.
But that didn't mean that they believed in it.
Okay.
They don't even like mention it because they were like, it was mandatory, not because they really wanted to for themselves, to benefit themselves. They just did it because that's what God believed in, that's what they were supposed to do as well.
Okay. And what reasons did he give for not dropping them into hell? What's the only reason God wouldn't just poof, drop you like a spider?
I think to give them a second chance.
To give them a second chance. So remember, let's see if anybody else can jump in. What period was going on, or rather, there was like a movement going on during the time that Jonathan Edwards wrote.
Was it the Enlightenment?
Yes, well, not the Enlightenment, it was a response to the Enlightenment. It was called the Great... We did this? Awakening.
Awakening, yes.
Okay, the Great Awakening. So what did Christians have to do if they wanted to like declare themselves like back into the church? Yes, be born again. So baptized. Exactly. So that's what he was trying to like get them to do. And like she was saying, just because they were in church didn't mean they were holy and super invested. Great. Okay, this table. So you guys have 5, right?
Yeah.
How does Edwards speak to people who think they are safe from God's wrath? And how does Edwards try to convince his listeners to become saved?
He spoke harshly, using emotional appeals to like fear him, but
Yes. What else?
And he pretty much says that if you commit something, then this is what God's gonna do to you. If you don't change or like,
yeah, you have
Yeah.
to.
you have to like repent.
What sorts of things did he say God would do to you?
He pretty much said that God is everywhere, that cannot escape from the punishment.
Yes.
Well, he said, didn't he say that God will send you to hell with no hesitation?
Right, without hesitation. It was kind of like there was no hope.
Yeah.
Unless
Unless
you repent, you're born again. Okay. Now, how do you think that kind of relates to Hester? What opportunity is the town giving her?
They were giving everybody. Yeah, so
Wait,
several.
Okay, Gabby?
To give her a second chance if she rebels the baby's father.
Yes, she has to reveal the baby's father, and that's something she's like, no, definitely not happening. Okay, so let's move on to the last question. So what do you think Jonathan Edwards hoped to accomplish through his sermon? How were his parishioners meant to respond? Andre?
He hopes to get all his listeners to hear what he has to say about how God how God will accept them into heaven if they change their life around. Like he won't turn it back on them if they don't turn it back on. You know?
Right, so that was that opportunity that y'all were talking about. So what was the line about you had the chance to either be feasting or like being in sorrow? Anybody? Okay. All right. What else? What kind of effect did this have on them? On the listeners?
It made them want to do better.
It made them want to do better.
If they could be like accepted by like God and would change.
Okay, what else?
Yeah, they were frightened, like scared of their sins, and they wanted to repent.
Right, back to that
You wanted
emotional
them to be on the
appeal.
right path?
On the right path. And what about physically? When they were listening to the sermon, what did it do to them?
Oh, they were like sweating and like super hot and stuff.
Yeah, Fabiola?
They was like in fear.
They were in fear, they were sweating, yes?
They'll cry and stuff.
They would cry. I think it even mentioned that some of them fainted. So these words were powerful. All right, now let's look at the daily end product question. So let's kind of talk and wrap this up and connect the two passages. So how did the Puritan religious values found in sinners in the hands of an angry God influence the punishment of Hester Prynne and the townspeople's perception of her in the Scarlet Letter? So before we get to writing, I kind of want you all to talk about it first, and then we'll pull out our response. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
How did